there was a time when everyone watched the same TV shows, the same movies, listened to the same music, talked about the same things, from examples like Michael Jackson to Harry Potter to even MTV. Back then, we used to have a shared culture and a shared experience, but I'm afraid that that time is gone. And so in this video, I want to take a few minutes to just discuss what happened to pop culture from my perspective, as well as answer the question, why doesn't anything feel big anymore? Why don't we have any hits anymore? But before we get into that, if you're new here, hello and welcome. My name is Cooper, and I'm a recent college graduate documenting my journey, as well as offering advice to you all here on this YouTube channel. So if that is something you are interested in, feel free to stick around. All right, let's get into it. So first, I want to just talk about and cover, before things started going south, talk about the era of shared culture. And now, I believe that the golden era of culture took place in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. For example, in those decades alone, everyone watched the same shows, things like Friends, American Idol. Everyone knew the top 10 songs from Billboard, right? And movie releases were events, not just content. I wasn't born then, but I'll always hear of, when Titanic was released, how much of a massive hit that was. And along with that, the soundtracks to movies, right? My Heart Will Go On. That song, echoed in the ears of virtually the entire country back then, right? But when you think about it, that just doesn't happen anymore. Like, when's the last time there was such a massive movie hit that everyone knew about it, talked about it? I think the first thing that comes to mind is maybe like Avengers Endgame and Infinity War. But even then, I don't think that would be even close to what Titanic was. But I think the point is that nowadays those moments are few and far between. And so, in general, back then, these shared experiences created a sense of unity and common reference points for the culture. Like, you knew, what your neighbor was into, because you knew there is some common ground that, if you stood in an elevator with somebody, it wasn't just like, oh, you knew nothing about them. No, at least you had something to fall on, where it's like, oh, did you see the episode of Friends last night? Oh yeah, me too. What'd you think? Right? It's like back then there was just this common shared culture that people could just talk about. Right? Nowadays we just don't have that. And to back this up, Nielsen data from the early 2000s showed that back then, in the early 2000s, like I said, a single TV episode would average over 50 million viewers. Today, even the biggest shows struggle to break 10 million live viewers. And so, where did we go wrong? Where did that change? Where was the tipping point? Now, I believe that the tipping point was in 2007 with the release of the iPhone. The iPhone, as we're all aware, made its debut in 2007, and that kicked off the era of social media. And with that came the era of what I would call subcultures, or more individualized cultures. Everyone got their own network, right? Instead of few centralized sources of radio, MTV, and regular TV, right? We each got our own personal feeds. And this is way more exacerbated today, right? With the advent of things like TikTok and Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts. We quite literally now have, we all have our individual personalized feeds, but that ultimately started in 2007 with the release of the iPhone and the spark and the growth of social media platforms, right? And so conversely, where we used to have, cultures led by icons and people, right? Now the culture is ruled by the algorithm, right? And this creates this sense of fragmentation, right? If you're someone who's on TikTok, there's trends. The youngins out there, the kids on TikTok nowadays are talking about like the newest trends. The one that's going around now is 6'7". I'm 22 years old, and I would say I'm young and like somewhat plugged in, but even I, that flew over my head. Like I had no awareness of that, and it just like blew up, and I was like, where is this from, right? So I think that is an example that just goes to show like how fragmented like we are. But back to the point is that, TikTok trends, Instagram Reel trends, YouTube Short trends, they are post, trends. It's now common for a trend to last only a few days, right? The 6'7" trend is a trend that's lasted weeks now, but I think that's rare. Like nowadays, you'll be lucky if a trend lasts a week and then everyone forgets about it and we're on to the next, right? The point is that where things used to last for years, now things last for weeks and likely days before we all just reset, forget, and an algorithm gives us our next trend. And so another example is if we switch over to something like music. Music discovery now depends on For You pages from like Spotify, and not just, what you would listen to the radio. Back then, our options were limited. We would only, you would go home, you would turn on the TV, switch to the MTV channel, and that's what you would watch. Like everyone was watching the same music videos and would come to school the next day and talk about like the music that they heard. Oh, like I really like that video. Oh, did you hear Madonna? Like I really like that. But nowadays, like you can listen to whatever, and we'll get to this in a second, but like the one benefit that we like to tell ourselves, or like almost like lie to ourselves, is that, oh, it's good because now we have an abundance. Like we can all like have our own taste and like listen to our own stuff or watch our own stuff. But in a way, it's almost worse, right? And we'll get to that in a sec. But like, for example, if you're someone who's scrolling on Instagram, two people can spend 4 hours a day, which is low by the national average. But just for the sake of argument, two people can spend 4 hours a day online on Instagram Reels scrolling and have zero overlap in what they watched or listened to. Just because the content now is so vast and so individualized that we can spend literally hours and days on our platforms and never once see something and have a commonality, something that we can relate to, something that we can both talk about, because we're essentially just living in our own separate bubbles, our own separate worlds that again is created by the algorithm. And so with the algorithm came the death of main characters in culture. There's no more universal icons, right? The celebrity era is fading, right? Before we had Michael Jackson, Madonna, the Beatles, Beyonce. Now there are hundreds of thousands of micro celebrities, each famous to their own niche, right? Platforms like YouTube, TikTok, and other streaming, Twitch, that's the one, the gaming one, right? Has created an infinite middle class celebrity status, right? Back then, when YouTube first kicked off, right? I think PewDiePie was the first real like YouTube celebrity, right? He amassed millions of followers and everybody knew who he was. Nowadays, it's Beast, and he has like 20 to 30 million across his various channels, tens of millions, right? And he's really big. But like the point is, back then, if you had 1 million subscribers on something, you were famous. Nowadays, if you have 1 million subscribers on any platform, then you're kind of mediocre. Like someone else, the guy across the street, probably has no idea. To you, like they're everything because you pay attention, you watch all their videos. But like the guy next door has no idea. And that kind of goes to show, how the concept of the main character, the concept of celebrity status has faded and disintegrated. to where being a celebrity essentially kind of means nothing because almost anybody can amass a following, right? The culture isn't led by few people. It's now atomized into the many. We no longer consume culture together. We consume it alone. And so bring the discussion to present day, I think the final blow, the danger that we encounter right now is with AI. Social media and the iPhone obliterated the culture and created sub-individualized cultures. AI will put the nail in the coffin. AI will get so good, it already is getting incredibly sophisticated and in its ability to personalize everything from creating music, movies, and stories. Everything just being generated for you to where eventually it's going to get to a point where we can type in a prompt, make me a movie about this, and it'll just be able to make a movie for you. Like the art of filmmaking, the art of music, the things that make us human, creative expression will be taken over by AI and force-fed down our throats. And it sounds powerful, but it's isolating. It's powerful in the way that a master is powerful. It's powerful in its ability to control, to steer you, right? It's not putting power into the hands of the individual. Again, it's putting power ultimately in the hands of the algorithm. These AI platforms, they're not, just a conversation between you and the robot. These algorithms and platforms are owned by corporations who most definitely have a log, right? And so that's another danger, is that the culture is no longer controlled by genuine people. It's controlled by corporations. And culture ultimately turns into 100% advertisement. And so wrapping up here, my fear is that what do we lose? Pop culture gave us common ground, shared language, shared nostalgia, shared identity as Americans. Without it, everyone lives in their own algorithmic echo chamber. We used to say, did you hear that song? Did you see that movie? We now say, you probably haven't heard this or seen this, but look at this. Look at what I created or what this created for me, right? The internet gave us infinite content, but killed our collective experience. And so where do we go from here? Maybe the death of pop culture isn't all bad, right? It gives more voices to a platform, as I was saying earlier, but we have to be intentional about creating shared moments again. And so what I would suggest is find ways to watch things, listen to things with your friends. Go sit down, watch a movie with your family. Go listen to songs with your friends, right? Share your playlists. Support human-made art that truly connects people and isn't just fed to you, right? Pop culture isn't dead because we stopped caring about it. It's dead because we stopped sharing about it. And so the question I leave you all isn't what's trending anymore, it's what's trending for you. And maybe that's the problem, right? So with that, that's kind of all I had to say, and just offer my 2 cents on what the culture is feeling like as a young person living and growing up in this rapidly advancing era. And I say advancing in air quotes because it's almost like it's advancement not in the ways of how it's improving our lives. It's advancement and progression in the way that a cancer or a sickness would progress if it's left unwatched and unmonitored. And so that's all I wanted to say. So I'm actually really curious. So if you guys made it to this point in the video, let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. And with that, that's all I had. So if you enjoyed what I had to offer, you can stick around on this YouTube channel where I post new videos every week on Tuesdays and Fridays at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. And with that, I will see you guys on the next one. Godspeed.